Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF, episode 361. And that is actually 356 weeks in a row, I believe. Yeah, that's what my notes tell me. 356 weeks in a row. We're going to hit the 7-year mark in about a month or so, which is really exciting. This broadcast is done by me in order to give back and help as many people as I possibly can, even if it's only one person that hears one second of this broadcast and it does something for you. That's what I wanted to do. We have today someone I met recently at an event I went to. I went to Spring Benson's spring break back in, I believe it was March, and there was this guy that was there, was talking about a lot of different things that I thought was a little off path for me. His name's Louie Hamner. We're going to talk about breath work. We're going to talk about his journey. Louie, thanks so much for being here today, man.
You bet, Dave. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, this is really exciting. But before we start, Nelson, hit the videotape. We know all real estate agents want to acquire clients consistently so that they can grow their business and income for that great lifestyle. This broadcast brings you the best and top people in the industry to support that quest. This is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and Align, your premier real estate solution. Good morning again, everybody. Dave Finale here. This is Real Estate Talk TGIF, episode 361. And I'm real excited today because I get to talk to someone that I thought was a little bit, I'm going to be honest with you, Louie, I thought was a little nutty what I was hearing at this event. I went to a real estate event that for some reason, I'm going to be honest with you, Louie, some reason I knew I had to be there. I didn't make the plans till the week before. A lot of people planned this whole thing. It was not the first spring break that Spring Benson had done. And I knew I had to be there. I knew it was more than one reason. I knew that I had other reasons to be there. Not because of the real estate content, because let's be honest, I mean, I've been in this business over 40 years. I've seen a lot of it. However, I will see a lot of people over and over and over again. Known John Cheplack for 15 years or so, and I will listen to him no matter what every day. And that's the value that he brings, the value that everybody at this event was going to bring. And I hear your introduction, and I'm not sure what to think. And honestly, I'm a little bit off. So let me read the intro I have. Louie Hamner, Senior VP Fidelity National. He's a visionary entrepreneur, devoted family man, passionate culture builder with over 2 decades in real estate in title. He sold his title company in 2021 to realign his core values, faith, family, and purpose. So cool. Today, while serving in business development at the title company, he also leads Sozo Breathwork and Coaching, guiding leaders through powerful inner transformation so they can lead with clarity, compassion, and truth. Like I said, I went to a real estate conference and a mindset series broke out. It's like I went to the fights and a hockey game broke out, you know? But Louie, thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah. Dave, thanks for having me here. And I love everything that you said. And I love that you said, like, no offense or whatever. I thought you were, whatever you just said, like, I thought you were crazy or thought like this was kind of kooky or whatever. But you felt like that calling to be there,
Yeah.
And that speaks to one of my favorite quotes from Marcus Aurelius. And when he said, whatever happens has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. And that quote was transformative for me because it speaks to what you just said. Here you are going about your life and you feel this calling to be there. You have to be there and you can't even, it's unexplainable. And to me, it's because of that. Like, it's your path in your life. Yeah. Like there was something that was there that was calling to you. And maybe it was this kooky breath work and this conversation.
Yeah, so it was really crazy. As we get into it, I do have one question that I start every broadcast with. It has nothing to do with breath work or real estate or anything. It has to do with what is your meaning? I'm sorry, let me kick back. What does TGIF stand for? That's the first question I ask everybody.
Yeah. I guess thank God it's Friday. That's
Yeah, you would be right for most people, but for this broadcast intent, thank God it's finale. I mean, that's just what it's all about. So that's the way it happened that way. I didn't do it on purpose, I promise. Anyway,
I love it.
anyway, Louie, man, that's the first question. That is the first question I ask everybody, but the second question is always the same too. I'm always curious, and I know it's extremely important for people to understand who you are, where you came from, because let's face it, we all didn't have success overnight. I know your story, and it's one that, you know what, I'm sorry. I think a lot of people have troubles in their life with money and everything else, and they figure it out. And that's the thing I say to I said it to my daughters when they started having babies. It's like, you'll figure it out. You're going to figure it out, because I did. Tell me about your story, where you've been, where you started at, and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, thanks. So I was born in Tennessee, and I only lived there for about a year. And I always say that because I never used to, but that's part of the story, right? I was born there in Nashville, Tennessee, and but my parents, we moved to Indiana right after was about a year old. And we grew up very poor. And the first house that we lived in Indiana, we lived out in a farming community, but the first house we lived in was a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1-outhouse house, right? And there were 13 children and 2 parents that lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and 1-outhouse. And I grew up using the outhouse and I remember thinking that was just common, that everyone had one. And anyway, it was just kind of funny. But so we grew up really poor. And throughout my whole life, I would say, I don't know, 70, 80% of my life, we were on welfare. And we were just always in dire straits of money. Meaning that my parents would, as kids, we would earn money working on a farm or mowing lawns or baling hay or whatever it was. And then we would use some of that money to give to my parents to fix the car so that my dad could go to work. So that's how poor we were. And one other thing I just remember as a kid, my mom saying, we can't go into town because I don't have money for gas. I have money for the food, but I don't have money to put gas on the car and buy food. So that's where I started. And that journey, that was one of my greatest fears growing up and having a family. In fact, it took a little bit for us to get pregnant, and I was kind of glad in a way, because there was this fear inside of me that I wouldn't be able to provide for my family much differently than how I grew up. Right. But what happened, I got a job at Fidelity Investments working as a retirement counselor specialist for the 403B department. I get fired from that place. And that's a whole story in and of itself, but it was crazy that I got fired because I'd just gotten promoted to be a manager. And anyway, long story, but that firing got me, and I was looking for a job, and I got hired as an escrow officer for a title company. And they said, we'll train you, even though you have no experience. We believe in you. We think you're going to be a rock star because of your background and your education, So I get started in the title business, and 7 months into the title business, I get fired. And when I get fired from there, the manager or the owner of the company fires me. And I asked him, why am I getting fired? And he says, well, we thought you'd be at a rock star and you're not. So we're letting you go. And he goes, and if I have to give you any more explanation, that's another reason why we're firing you. And it just blew my mind, because a month prior to that, I got a $10,000 annual raise because they said I was so good. And so then I was like, what in the hell is happening? Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So that got me in the title business. And from there, over the next 18 years, I grew a title company and was able to sell it in 2021. And it was incredible. And that whole journey was amazing. And one of the pivotal points in that journey, there were 2 pivotal points in that journey in doing that, because the whole time in growing that company and becoming an escrow officer and learning the ropes and how that all works. And I just kept wondering, like, when am I going to get fired again? Or am I ever going to figure this out? Because I'm shy by nature and I don't love sales and I don't love any of this. But I had two moments that really pivoted me in my life. And one, and I guess I am going to share the story. So one was this moment where I kept feeling like I had this calling, kind of like what you just said. And I had people like literally Spring Benson, and she can actually, tell you about this, but that she would say, man, you're just more than just a title person. Like, you just got to step into this, and people love hearing you and all this stuff. And I kept, for a year during 2017, I kept having this feeling like I need to step into a higher role of myself, but I was scared to do it because it wasn't who I was.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
well, sometimes I get it.
We don't want to, we don't want to start running because we always tell ourselves like, I'm not a runner, but deep down we want to run. But our identity, the image of who we are, of our identity, is what keeps us bound to where we are. And that's good and bad. It can be good and bad. And anyway, so I was praying one day in my office at home, and I asked God this question. I just said, look, if you want me to be this person that everybody says that I should step into, and I'm so afraid to do it, I want you to give me a sign. I'm like, I need something from you to do this. And what I said in that was, I grew up reading Zig Ziglar, because in the 7th grade, we had to read this book, See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. And I just thought, and Zig Ziglar is a religious guy, right? He talked about God quite a bit and stuff, kind of like, yeah. Anyway, so I say this, I'm saying this prayer, and I say this: give me the book that is the source of all motivation. Give me the book that got Zig Ziglar his start. If you give me that book, I'll do it. And I don't even know what that meant, but that's just what came in my heart to say to God in that moment, right? Yeah. So I say that, and then I'm going to pull up my iPad here. Then a couple weeks later, this neighbor of mine comes over and says, hey, man, I know you're into Tony Robbins and self-development and all that stuff. He's like, but I got this book. It's an old book. My dad gave it to me when I got married. And this guy's about 10 years my senior. And he says, my dad would read to us from this book when I was a kid. And I just had this thought to bring it over to you. I have no idea why. So he brings this book over to me, and I don't think anything of it.
Oh, wow.
And so, and that's the book. I'll give you details of this later, but that's the book. So he brings this book over, and the next day I have this feeling to take it with me when I go to work. And I'm like, I don't know why I would do that, because I don't want the book to get bent up, because it's old book. Like, you can feel it. It's old. It was originally written in the 1800s. That's how old the book is. So I take this book with me. I'm sitting in my truck. I have this minute or my car, and I think, and my client's late. I'm picking up to go to lunch, and I have this thought: read that book. I have this thought: I have a spare minute. Read the book. So I take the book and I open it up, and I start, and I open it up, and just to show you this, and I can't make this up. Like, I'm not smart enough to make this up, but I opened the book up, and the title of that book, or that chapter, is Possibilities in Spare Moments. That's the title of the chapter that I open up to. And I'm sitting in my car, and I'm like, oh shit. And I just get like goosebumps on the back of my neck. And I'm like, dude, what is happening right now? This kind of, like you said, that feeling. I'm like, dude, there's no way. So I start reading that chapter, and I get to this quote, and it says this: for every hour in a man's life has its own special work possible for it, and for no other hour within the allotted span of years. Once it's gone, it will not return. Okay. So I hear that, or I read that, and then I just hear God say, this is the book you asked for. Now do what you said you're going to do. All right. So a couple days later, I share that story with a friend of mine, Toby Roberts, who owns City Creek Mortgage here locally. And I had this thought, like, I share that story, and she's like, oh my gosh, I believe you. I believe that's what happened. She goes, we need to find out if Zig Ziglar got his start from there, yada, 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 right? Anyway, I have this thought, like, I'm going to give her a copy of the book, and I have this impression to wrap it in the era that it was written. And that's how I wrapped it. That was the book. All right. So I wrapped this book. I give it to her. Toby loves it. She posts it online. And why I got to tell you that story is because she posts it online. And then this guy makes a comment on her post, and he says, hey, I have a copy of that book. The gentleman who wrote it, he wrote it in Above a Barn, da 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 da. He's like, it was the original positive mental attitude book. Whoever bought you this book is a class act. And Toby says, hey, you got to call this guy. I don't know who he is. I met him. He's a friend on Facebook. Somehow he knows something about this book. So long story short, I contact this guy on Facebook. I ask him how he got a copy of this book and how he knows about it. And there's the Facebook message, but you can see, he says, I got it through a recommendation from Zig Ziglar. And I'm thinking, holy shit, he got this book through Zig Ziglar. I asked God to give me the book to get Zig Ziglar to start. Long story short, I get on a conversation, on a call with this guy in front of my escrow officers during our meeting, because I tell them this story. And I said, hey, I'm going to call this guy. We're going to see what's going on. And so I tell this guy this story, and this guy goes, you're blowing my mind. And he says, I want to tell you something. Zig Ziglar personally told me this story. He said, about 12 years ago, I met Zig Ziglar. I flew out to Texas to meet with him. And he said, and he gave me that book that you have in your hand. He goes, and then he told me this story that when he was a little boy, his nanny pulled him into a room and told him and said, Zig, I had a dream a couple nights ago, and God told me that you're going to be somebody special to the world. And then he kept repeating this. He kept saying, just so you know, Zig Ziglar personally told me the story, so you're not going to find it. He personally told me the story. He goes, and then the nanny said, God told me in a dream to buy you a book so that you could start studying it, so you can become the man he has, or, wants you to be when you grow up.
Right.
And he goes, do you know what the name of that book is? I said, no. He's like, it's the effing book you have in your hand. He goes, Zig Ziglar personally told me that story, and there's no way you know that story. You're not going to find it. And he goes, so somehow God told you that story, and somehow I know that story, and I became friends with Toby, and there's no way that's happening right now. And he was just going, he was like swearing. He was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is effing happening. There's no way. He goes, out of 7 billion people that know that story, there's like, out of 7 billion people on the planet, there's probably 50 people that know that story because Zig had to personally tell it to you. He goes, I'm one of them. There's no way you know that. It's impossible. If you've never met him and you don't know anybody close to him, there's no way you know that. And that story, that experience told me that I had some type of calling to do, because there's no way I could ask for that. And there's no way that could happen. And I remember telling Spring this whole story, and she's like, you're blowing my mind right now. And I'm like, I know, this is crazy. And my point of sharing that is not to impress you or not to like show that I'm special, but we all are special in a way. And I believe that we all have a certain calling in our life to achieve. And when we connect to the deepest, to that divinity, that divinity that's within us, when we connect to that, we start to realize and make decisions that we never would have otherwise made. Kind of like you coming to spring break. There was a part of you that connected, that you're connected to your divinity, to that power, to that eternal knowing. And there was something that was telling you to be there without you having any rational reason to do it. And then when I showed up and you're like, this guy's kind of crazy. Like to me, like that's all part of the story, Dave. That's all part of the process of that.
So I want to tell that story of those 2 days, or less than 18 hours, I guess, is, I'm going through this session, and I mean, this shit was great. I mean, Justin Nelson, Spring Benson, John Cheplack, Ben Kinney, all these greats, and I knew these people would be in the room, and I'm always looking to be in the right room. And my objective anytime I go to an event is I need to be the dumbest person in the room. I need to ask that dumb question. And it's like right before you came on, I said, I'm taking a breath, and I'm saying, okay, good. Okay. This has just been amazing. My mind is full. I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad I came. And then Louie Hamner comes on, and, you start talking and thanking Spring because she's the one, if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, she's the one who pointed you toward breath work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
She said, you need to do this, call this guy. I remember that. And then you started talking about it. I said, okay, well, I don't know. What is this? Right. When you said you were going to give out eye masks, I'm thinking iPhone, right? Eye mask. I'm thinking the I, not EYE. I'm thinking the eye
Awesome.
eye mask. I'm saying, what the fuck is that? I mean, what? I mean, this is nuts, right? So then, okay, fine, all right, I'll play along, and so I really didn't get heavily into it, but I understood what was going on. I'm saying, geez, I might pass out here. I don't get this, right? So, and then the quick session of breath work finishes, and then I'm listening to people what they're saying and what they felt and everything, and I'm saying, wait a minute, what the hell did I just miss by not paying attention to 100%? So then after the day finishes, I introduced myself to Justin, and I don't even remember the conversation, to be honest with you, but he said, are you going tomorrow? I said, yeah, I'll be here. He says, no, to the breathwork session at 7. He says, you should come. So look, I'm an East Coast guy. I am up early. I'm up on East Coast time at 4 a.m. So when I'm in Mountain time, 2 hours earlier, so it's a struggle for me to even stay asleep.
Yeah,
I'm up anyway. It doesn't matter. So I said, you know what? I'll go work out. I'll go here. And then you know what? I got enough time. I'll go. Well, lo and behold, I go to your session. It was like an hour or so session, but I think the breathwork was 22 minutes.
Man, you got a good memory.
Right. Yeah. So, and I felt really strange because we're lying on the floor on mats and stuff, and got the eye masks on, and I'm thinking, okay, so can I do this? Can I do this without passing out? I mean, and so, and then I started it and say, okay, stay calm. And it's funny because I had mentioned this to you the other day when we talked that, I had recently gone in an MRI machine, and if anyone has done that, you know what that's like. And the guy said, you want a headphones with music? I said, yeah, give me the music, because this way it'll I won't listen to the banging. He forgets to put the music on. And the only way I got through that 30-minute session, the last 10 minutes, was I was breathing. I was taking deep breaths, and I'm thinking, as I'm doing the breath work, I'm thinking about the fucking MRI. And I said, I can never get hurt again, because I can never do this again. Right. So my goal to never hurting my leg, I had a torn hamstring, by the way. That's why I was in the MRI. I never want to hurt myself again. And I'm going to be that careful, because I will not go into that machine ever again. But anyway, I digress. So I do the breath work, and I'm like halfway through, and I start seeing shit. And this is not crazy, guys, so please don't think I'm nuts. This is truth. You see yourself a little differently, or you see yourself as you are. And I saw myself as I know I am, but there's a lot of other things there. There's a lot of other people there. There's a lot of things that I saw that basically told me that I'm on the right path of what I'm doing, but it kind of gave me a little bit of a reason. I'm not going into that. I'm not going to go into my head and everything else, but I said, now I fucking get it. Now I get it. Now I know the depth of, because I think way too much about everything. I wear my heart on my sleeve. People would say, Dave, you're really extroverted. I say, no, I'm really kind of introverted, but you wouldn't know that, because I do this and I speak in public, and I try to help agents as much as I can. People always say, well, you're a great motivational speaker. That's never been my goal, to be a motivational speaker, is to help people in their real estate business. And I'm thinking that, you know what, that's what I was supposed to do. So I just need to find a way to do it in a better way. And that's what I got out of that for the most part was, I'm not going to, I really can't go, I'm not going to go into details. I have not shared that with anybody. I'm not sharing that here, but Louie, I'm going to tell you something. It meant an awful lot to me. It changed some things in my head. I got back, spoke to Joanne about it, and she was well aware of it, and I didn't know. I said, well, why?
Well, of course, she knows more than you. And you just have to get over that.
So anyway, so that was my experience with that event. And it may have been the main reason I knew I had to go. There are a lot of reasons I knew I had to go just for the people, but look, I mean, this is a public thank you to you for being there and being there for me. And, I got it. And so anyway, that's my story. I don't usually tell stories on these broadcasts, but I needed to just tell that, just to support, I want you to talk about breath work now and what you do
Yeah.
in it and basically what is it? So let's go there.
Dave, so I wanted just to illustrate this or just bring this awareness. Like, notice that story that I just told is exactly what you just did. It was really, it's the same story. It's the same journey, like stepping into a better version of yourself and doing that thing that you're capable of doing, and knowing that you have that God wants you to do that there's a higher calling for you to do it, to step into that, and so I love that you shared that, because that's exactly what that moment did for me. And that's why when I was going through that difficult time in my business, and Spring said, I think you need to go do this breath work. And I was like, what is it? And she's telling me this thing. I thought the same thing you thought. I'm like, that sounds crazy. I'm going to be laying down breathing for an hour or so or whatever. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm not like, and she goes, just trust me. And I thought, well, Spring always does cool shit, so I better do it, Right. But so what that did for me in that breath work, it revealed to me that I wasn't connecting to this higher version of myself. And what I began learning by doing breath work is that, and I said this in that event, but I speak Greek, and as I started learning more and more about breath work, I realized that in Greek, the word for breath means spirit. It's the same word. Yeah. And so every time that I was going into my practice, or I was talking to my coach, he would say breath work, or he would say, breath, I would hear spirit, and I would say, he would say, make sure you don't lose track of your breath. And I would hear, make sure you don't lose track of your spirit. And we're going to do breath work, and I'm hearing spirit work. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's crazy. Like, this is like, I'm connecting to this part of me in that breath work. And so what I found was the same thing that you found, is that every time I would do my personal practice, or I go to a session with Zach, I would find this deeper meaning, very personal things that would happen, and understanding of myself that I didn't quite understand before. And kind of like what you said, but for me, my wife would say certain things, and I'm like, I don't know, you don't know business, you're not in business or whatever. And then I'd realize, oh shit, she's right. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is like, and what I realized is that I wasn't connecting to that, to the highest version of myself, a self that didn't need coaching, a self that didn't need learning, a self that already knows things that have never been written, or knows things about me that has never been said, that don't need to be said. And right. So that really started shifting some things that I would do in my business, and the way I would talk to people, and the way I would interact with clients, and that it started bringing more out an authentic version of myself. I was in a room with an expert sport psychologist. His name is Craig. I'll think of his last name here in a minute. Let me look it up. Anyway, his name's Craig. He can you give me 1 second? I'm going to pull this up. I wasn't thinking about this, but Craig Manning. So Craig Manning, and he actually coached the Milwaukee Bucks to the NBA champions, to win the championship in the NBA in 2021. And Craig Manning said that the highest version of yourself is found in authenticity. And he said, my whole goal with the Milwaukee Bucks was to get each player to play authentically, not what they had been taught to play, but to play authentically. And he said, in a nutshell, the reason why we won the championship that year, I got them to play authentically. And he said, if you don't play authentically in your life and in your business, you can't win at the highest level you're capable of living. And breathwork is a pathway of accessing and understanding and realizing and recognizing and shifting your identity of the true authenticity of who you are. And it just starts shifting you, making decisions you would never, the old version of yourself would never make, the less authentic version of yourself would never make. And so I go ahead.
No, really important. We talk about be authentic, right? We talk about working authenticity, but you know what? Here's a really stupid question. What the hell does that mean? Be authentic. Is that do what you feel? I mean, most people don't know who they are and what they're doing. How do you find authenticity?
Because what stands in the way of authenticity is your ego. What stands in the way of your authenticity is your ego, and breath work marginalizes the ego. The ego is designed to create suffering. Eckhart Tolle says this: the ego is designed to create suffering, and you have to suffer until you realize that suffering is not necessary. And your authentic version is found outside of the ego, but the ego guides you to experience the suffering to discover the authenticity. For example, as a father, as a young father, I'm like, I'm going to tell my kids what to do. They're going to do these things. And then I realize, shit, you can't tell a toddler to do anything.
Right.
Right. Okay. So my ego is saying, I'm going to make sure my kids are never going to yell at church, or my kids are never going to have banana all over their face or whatever. Or like my kids will never do that. And then when we hear somebody say that as a parent, as an experienced parent, we're like, oh yeah, just wait until you have kids. Good luck with that. Right. So what says all of that? What says all of that is the ego.
Right.
But then life experiences, toddlers cause you to suffer. Kids cause you to suffer in a way that you never thought was possible.
Right.
Does that make sense? And so then that suffering starts to mellow out the ego. And then you're like, nah, dude, every kid does that. I remember I was on an airplane and this little baby, it's like 10-month-old baby, was just bawling. And my wife and I were sitting there, we had kids. And then there were these 4 guys, they're all on a trip and they're playing cards together. They're like all in the same row and they're all playing cards, like whatever. And they just look like really cool guys. Anyway, and I was kind of worried because this mom is like trying to shush her baby and, before we take off and all this stuff, and he's crying. And my wife leans up and says, hey, don't worry about it. Just let him cry. We all understand how babies work. Don't worry, And then the one guy sitting on the edge right behind her, he leans up and goes, hey, ma'am, there's 4 guys back here. We don't give a shit if your kid cries. And if anybody says anything, we got you. Don't worry. Let the kid cry. And I remember the mom just going, huh. Okay. So that moment as a young parent, and the guy says, we've all done this on a plane with a little kid. So don't worry about any shit anybody's going to give you, because we'll give them more, or something like that. He was very like, I got your back, lady.
Right.
Well, that's my point. It's like, that's the ego creating that suffering. And so in your business, where business is hard and you're suffering, there's something about that you haven't surrendered to. There's something about that you're more attached to the ego than you are to the authentic version of yourself. And when you can let go of that ego and connect more to that authenticity, it just gets easier. It gets way easier. And that's the reason for breath work. Honestly, the whole reason why spring break came to be is because of breath work. Spring let go of her worry of, can she do this? What is this going to be like? And she's like, you know what? I was in breath work and I realized I don't really care. I just want to do it. And for me to watch her over the years and to grow that event to what it was in Salt Lake here back in March, I mean, it was phenomenal. It was incredible. It was like Tony Robbins-esque. Like, it was crazy.
Right.
And to me, that's been her journey of letting go of that and me being able to watch it. And there's other things obviously in play, but breathwork obviously being a key to letting go of it's the understanding the dance between ego and authenticity. And it's hard to experience or to explain without you having an experience. I forget who it was, but he says, we never learn from our experiences. We learn from reflecting upon our experiences. It's the reflection upon what we experience is the true learning. And so I can't teach you enough about ego, or nobody can say it enough until you start to experience it. And you're like, just what you did. What is this cookie stuff? Justin talks you into doing the session the next day. And you're like, holy shit. Now I'm beginning to understand what this is.
So let me just talk the ego of the woman with the crying baby. Her ego is that she's going to be upset when people are going to be upset because the baby's crying, and she's going to affect other people and offend other people. That's the ego we're talking about, correct?
Yeah. And to think about this, I kind of got emotional you saying that, because think about this, going back to that quote, Marcus Aurelius says that everything that's happening to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. That lady with that little baby traveling on her own got seated behind my wife, who was seated behind these guys, right by these four guys that were playing cards there to protect her. Mind blowing to me.
Right.
Mind blowing. I mean, think about when last time you were on an airplane. Think about the last 5 times you're on an airplane and there was a crying baby. Did you hear anybody say that to that lady or to the person saying, don't worry about your kids? No.
We said it afterwards. We didn't say it before.
Bingo. And that's the difference. That is the difference right there.
Yep.
So, all right. And so that's something that is like, that's the ego. And then that's how it works. Yeah, you got it.
So I want to get into a full explanation of what breath work really is. We're talking about the effects and we're talking about ego. What is breath work and what is the process of it, the actual physical process?
So the physical process of this one, and not all breath work is the same or it was designed to do the same thing, meaning Wim Hof and what he does is every breathwork style has a specific intention behind it. The style that I practice is rebirthing, and that was made famous by Leonard Orr. And what this practice is, you can do it through your nose, but in the beginning, it's easier to do it through your mouth. But what that practice is how we teach it is you're laying down, and you can be sitting up and doing this, but laying down is easier, is like more conducive for it. But you're laying down, and it's an intentional inhale through the breath or through the mouth, and it's through the belly so that your belly's going up and down. So it's an intentional inhale at the pace of a relaxed exhale. And then you're just allowing the breath to fall out of your belly. So just like, it's like a normal breath. It's like a normal kind of a semi-deep breath, maybe 70% of your lung capacity, but there's no hesitation at the top or the bottom. So it's a continual breathing cycle. And when you breathe through your belly, what you're doing is you're activating the parasympathetic system, which is designed to deactivate fight or flight mode and to put you in a very relaxed state. And your most relaxed state, Marcus Aurelius said that when the closer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to his strength, to his true strength. Bruce Lee said the purpose of a cup is in its emptiness, meaning that a cup is not useful if it's full of something. So what happens is this practice of activating your parasympathetic system for about 30 to 40 minutes, it empties the mind and rids the body of any fight or flight mode or sympathetic system activation. And when you can rid the body of any sympathetic system activation, and you've continually forced or gently persuaded the activation of the parasympathetic system, your whole body becomes very relaxed. And Tony Robbins teaches that your physiology is the pathway to understanding your mindset, that your physiology changes your mindset faster than anything. So what this is it's actively relaxing your physiology, and then your mind goes to a place that it can't go in the sympathetic system. Just like fight or flight mode. Try being very calm in fight or flight mode. You can't. Right. It's impossible. So the opposite is also true. You can't be an ego in the parasympathetic system. You just can't be. You're connected to the. I mean, you might be a smidgen in the ego, but you're connected just to the most authentic version of yourself, and it widens your perspective. Like fight or flight mode narrows tunnel vision. Well, parasympathetic system gives you panoramic view. And that's why you said you saw things that you didn't understand or that you've never seen before about yourself, because the ego has you looking through a keyhole. Well, when you're in your authentic version of yourself and your highest spiritual version of yourself, you're not looking through a keyhole. You're looking through a wide view lens. And then you see things and recognize things that you've never seen. And you're like, holy shit, how is that right here? That's been right here the whole time.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times as a kid, helping my dad work on a car, and he's like, go get the Caressent wrench. And I can't find that damn wrench for the life of me. And it's right in front of me because I'm so nervous. I got to get this tool back to my dad. Right.
That's correct.
I mean, you know it. Like,
In there.
If you've lived in the 80s and you had to hold a flashlight for your dad, you're not afraid of anything. Right. Like, and but what that does is activate the parasympathetic system for that period of time, broadens your understanding and your perspective in a way that you could otherwise not have ever done.
So we did it and we did a very short version and we did a longer version. How is this typically done? Now, do you do this every day? Is it like a workout for you? How's it worked into schedules? How's it worked into everything? What do you do and how do you do it? I mean, there's calming music behind it, the whole thing. Let's talk about that, please.
Yeah. So what I do is, in the beginning, I was doing it 3 or 4 times a week just because I was so high stressed and I just needed it. And I did that for a few months. But what I would say is I do it once a week. I do it with my earbuds in. And I find myself in a place I know I'm not going to be interrupted by a pet or by a phone or by my wife or kids or anything. And you can do this anywhere, and I lay down, I get myself relaxed for a minute, and then I just start gently pulling my breath. And now that I've been doing it for 6 years, but it's a little easier for me. But in the beginning, you just pull your breath until you know you're done pulling your breath. And sometimes I've done it and I've actually pulled my breath because it's not hyperventilation. I'm not over breathing. I'm just breathing gently in, gently out, gently in, gently, like a normal breath. I've done it for 90 minutes of breathing continuously, 90 minutes. And so I do it once a week. I think that's probably a good place to start. You know, you do it a couple times a week. But it's just kind of where you kind of find a rhythm. It's kind of like I've run several marathons. It's kind of like trying to find your pace for a marathon. You have to run a little bit to kind of figure out like where you like it, what's your gait, you know, what's your rhythm. And so that practice is, even if you did it for 10 minutes a day, like you actually actively pulled your breath for 10 minutes and then sat in it for 5 minutes, that's a great place to start.
Yeah. And they're all over. They're all over the place. I mean, you're located in Salt Lake City so obviously people aren't going to be able to do this. Is there a digital?
Well, what I'm going to tell you, Dave, I was just thinking about this now. Like maybe if sometime you want to put something together, I would love to be able to do that over Zoom for a group. For anybody that listening to this broadcast, and we set up a time and say, hey, if you love what was said here today, join us, and I don't know, sometime in May or something. And, we'll go for your time frame. So, cause we know you get at the crack of dawn, you get up at the crack of dawn and we'll get up and just do it over Zoom. And I think we could totally do that. And that would be, and give everybody an experience that wanted to experience that.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I will start putting that out there to different people and see if anyone's interested. It's when I'm a novice, I'm not, I don't even know if I even equate to a novice yet, but the thing is that I do understand it. And, us people here in Northern New Jersey are very cynical. We're very critical of things. And, a lot of shit that works all over the country doesn't work here because we say, well, what the hell is that? Yeah. So it's like, attitude is everything they say. And we can be a little critical. And I actually know reasons why we are like that in Northern New Jersey, but that's beside the point. I won't go there.
Oh, and I was going to say too, I'm coming out there in May to BIC for BIC's event.
You're going to be in the Virginia area, Virginia, DC area.
Yeah. May 13th and 14th. Yeah.
Right. So if anybody wants information on that event, let me know. I will get that. I don't have that here with me, but I will put that information out. I have some conflicts. I might even come down. I'm working on that now to try to rearrange that. But here's the thing, man. This is a process. What you do and what you've done for others. There's a lot of people that have seen what you're doing and have been really affected. What kind of things can people do to get started? Can they get started on their own? Are there areas are there places in all areas about breath work and what could they expect from a session?
Yeah. So I think, One, it's very prevalent online, and like I said, all breath works aren't the same. So I think in every area you're going to find a variation of breath work, right? Wim Hof, or there's these places popping up of. So what I would say is get started is look up just to YouTube, and I can send you some, but look up on YouTube and just say, what is rebirthing breath work and how do you do it, and a guided session, a guided 15-minute session. And I would look at that and get started with that. Dan Brule has a great book. He's the one that really also promotes rebirthing as well. He actually coached Tony Robbins in breathwork. So Dan Brule has a book called Just Breathe. And that book was really instrumental for me in understanding breathwork and creating a deeper interest and a deeper awareness around it and what it can actually do for you. Because breathwork's practiced by the Navy SEALs, it's practiced by the Green Beret, it's practiced by the Delta Force, all high-end life-saving, where life's on the line, like that kind of a military operation. They practice breathwork because it's so important. Mark Devine from the Navy SEALs talks about it in his book.
So, you know what, we talk about we've talked about ego, we've talked about my experience, and we talked about your evolution through it. What would you say to the cynical person? What would you say to the cynical person that, well, okay, so it's kind of crazy because I am that person, or I was that person about this. Yeah. So, what would you say to them and say, look, this is kind of different. I know that, yada, yada, yada. What would you do? What would you say there?
Honestly, jokingly, I would say your suffering is necessary until you decide it doesn't need to be. Like, cynicism is a way of suffering. Cynicism is a form of suffering. And I would just say, I want you to stay in your cynicism until you decide you don't want to be in it anymore. Let me know. Because it's not anything I can convince you of. It's something that you have to say, hey, I'm ready to let go of something, and I don't know how to do it. I've tried it. I've tried to let go of this. All right, I'm ready to look into it.
So what it is so I'm equating this. You just, that was like a punch in the face right there. Cynicism is suffering, and it truly it is. You think about people that have these, and like me, right? So when I was at the event, it was like, what is this? My first thing is, this is crap. I'm not wasting my time with this, because when I'm saying that, I'm saying I know better. I'm closed-minded. That's what all that is saying, right?
Yes.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, the minute you think you know something,
you don't.
That's suffering. So
the point I'm trying to make, I don't even know how well I'm doing it, but I talked about the baby crying and what the mother's thinking, right? What you're thinking about. I'm not going to listen to this crap. This is stupid, right? Judgment. It's like one thing I learned from John Cheplak. He says, okay, what did he say? He says, don't be the judge, be the witness. Right?
I love it.
So you got to take, so one of the things that I've been working on since spring break is that feeling of judgment, right? Mm-hmm. We talk about the call avoidance in our business, the prospect, right? We talk about call avoidance. We talk about the fear of rejection. We talk about all this. And basically now, as we've had this conversation, it's all about ego and it's all about suffering. If we can get out of our suffering and know that look, here's the thing. Real estate prospecting, making phone calls is not easy. Some people love to do it. Most people, I haven't met any, I do know a couple of people that love to do it, that live for it. I think they're out of their freaking minds because that's just their mindset. But you know what? They have no ego when it comes to that. They're going to get hung up on, they're going to get, GFUs, go fuck yourselves. You're going to get that, right? And it happens all the time. So this kind of thing can help people get through their ego, and just the thought of it, get your mind rolling out of ego in the beginning. Does any of that make sense?
100%. So here's a contrasting statement. Ego to authenticity is judgment versus curiosity. Ego versus authenticity is judgment versus curiosity. So I can tell you, when you're in judgment, when you're not in curiosity of something foreign to you, you're in ego.
And that's what I say when I talk about and how I understand judgment to witness is, we're always there in our ego. And when I said, I don't know if I can't do this, or I don't want to do this. I always want to, whatever I said, I know that sounded really garbled, and it was, because that's what was going through my mind. I was judging instead of sitting back, being at a great event and saying, okay, what is this? It's got to have value if it's on this stage, right? And I didn't give it that. And then I did, because I said, oh shit, what did I miss? And then I realized that, everything I've learned from John, I've listened to John for 15, 16 years, and is, being a witness instead of a judge. And that's open-mindedness. And it takes you ego. You can't have an ego if you don't judge.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you know what is the opposite of a witness?
What's that?
A skeptic.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to Northern New Jersey.
That's right. That's right. So to me, the fact that you say, I love that he says witness. It's because deep down, the authentic version of yourself says, yeah, give up the skeptic shit. Just give it up.
Yep.
Give it up. You want to give it up. Your authentic version wants to give it up because it knows there's a better way.
Yeah. Hey man, you know what?
It's crazy.
This has been a great broadcast. And it has everything to do with you and your business. It's everything to do with, what I think the last 5 minutes, the first thing we really even talked about real estate, but it has to do with sales. It has to do with everything. It has to do with your business. It has to do with what you want to achieve in your life. It doesn't have to be real estate. It doesn't have to be sales. It doesn't have to be anything, but it's about where you want to go in your life. And you know what? I want to thank you so much for being on here today. I've been so fortunate to be able to attend these events and have people, respect enough that, you came on here, you didn't know who I was before I contacted you. And, we've got great broadcasts coming up. We have Byron Lazine next week. We've got Spring Benson and Brian Charlesworth coming up, in the future weeks, along with Brandon Brittingham. So, we've got some great people, and you, especially, you're leading off that run that I've got going with the people from Spring Break. And I want to thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah.
I got two more things for you, if it's okay. One is a question and one is a comment. First of all, how do I help you grow your business?
Just what this is, just things like spreading what you experience, like being a witness to what you experienced and being a witness to our conversations and what can be learned by having these conversations. Being a witness to that to me is the best thing. In my background here, this is my studio. So this is real. This is not like a image. This is, this is my breathwork studio. And you can see this person here, breathing, and this is their breath. This over here is the burning bush that God talked to Moses through. And so being here, being a witness to what we've talked about, to me, that's the best thing that you can do for me.
What would you say? Thank you for that. What would you say to anyone listening that wants to get involved in this? What would you say to them?
Follow that desire. As crazy as it may feel, as opposite of what it may be of who you are and that identity, don't be afraid to follow that. And don't be afraid to ask for the things that you need. Me asking God to give me a book that Zig Ziglar got his start seems ridiculous, and even when I told my wife that story at the beginning, she's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, dead serious. Like here's the guy. Here's the audio of the guy telling me the story because I recorded it." And I'm like, that's crazy. So when they say that there's nothing impossible, that if you can dream it, it means that you can be it. I started to understand that phrase more and
Right.
more and more. And so don't be afraid to follow what's in your heart, regardless of the opposition in front of you.
Hey, man, thanks so much for being on. Of course, Real Estate Talk TGIF wouldn't be the same without the hat. So,
And that's what I want to say. Last thing I want to say is TGIF. I am like, thank God there's finale like this thing, you know.
there you go.
I'm glad.
Thank you so much, man. Hey, just stay on for a second as we go off. Everybody, thank you so much. This is Friday, April 25th, 2025. I always put a date on it. Thanks so much for being here. We got Byron Lazine next week and great guests, as you heard, coming up as we move forward. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you next week from Florida. Stay on for a second there, Louie. Take care, everybody. Hit it.